Hello, I'm Michael Wilde, and this is not the head from Art Attack. This is a Greek statue that I'm calling Bruticus that I sculpted this week, and I thought, I've done it, I'll record it, why not edit it into a little video, because content is king in 2020, and it's day something of the quarantine, so let's watch me do this, and I've got a cup of tea, and I'm just going to talk over it. So, started with the Z-sphere, and yeah, just dynameshing it, using clay build-up, using high polish, using the move tool. Those are kind of the main ones. The standard sometimes, but I always prefer using clay build-up. Yeah, I don't know how much educational value there is to this, but I thought, why not? So I am a modelling and texturing artist by trade, so sometimes we're using ZBrush, but then I'll have to jump to Mari and I won't use ZBrush for 2 or 3 months. So the one good thing about this quarantine is in the downtime, I'm getting to polish up a few skills. I haven't done a character or a human face in a while. The last one I did was for a project. It wasn't actually used in the end. It's for an Alexander Wang campaign. Yeah, so I thought, hey, let's do one. So it wasn't initially going to be a Greek statue, but halfway through I was just like, hey, you know what? This could be kind of cool. And it was an idea for a larger project that I have that I might end up using it for. You'll see this face doesn't take shape for quite a long time, and that probably speaks more of my ability than the general process for sculpting faces. But I kind of thought, why not show this anyway? Because sometimes you see amazing stuff and you're like, oh, I bet they did that in 20 minutes. But this took quite a long time. So you can kind of see me building it up. Looking back at it now, I'm a bit embarrassed with some things, like the cheekbones, for example, take ages to really take shape. They're so wrong for ages, but when you're staring at a piece of work for so long, and so when you're learning to do something, it can be really difficult to see that. So you either have to like walk away from it for half an hour, half a day, ask somebody else to look at it. My housemate's quite good. She was a VFX artist and she's got a really good eye just for things in general. So I can be like, hey, what's wrong with this? And she's really good at that. And I'll point out some bits later where I kind of had to get her to help with that. But the eyes, I'm really guilty at oversizing the eyes to begin with, like some kind of like Tim Burton-esque character. Did he do that film, Big Eyes? I feel like he did a film called Big Eyes. If not, that reference doesn't make sense and I apologise. But yeah, I've got reference up on my other screen. I always do. Like anything in VFX, reference is king. If it doesn't look like the real world, then even if it's an imaginary creature, then you need some sort of real world grounding in there. So yeah, you can see my ref there jump up quickly. Yeah, I don't really have a huge amount to say. I'll kind of just talk through it. Might waffle on a little bit. Moving the eyes back a bit, they were way too far forward. Those cheekbones, man. That nose as well. The nose really, like all of this, it really takes a lot of tweaking. So I hope everybody's quarantine is going okay. What is it? It's like day 50 now. And I've only gone stir crazy a couple of times. There's only been a couple of days where I'm like, fuck. So yeah, I'm finally laying in a bit of the cheekbones there. But I got Borderlands 3 recently, and it runs like arse on my PlayStation, my like day one PlayStation 4, but it's good fun. Yeah, the back of the head isn't the right shape either. So I've got a skull underneath. I'm using, there's a skeleton from Ryan Kingsley, I think, that comes with ZBrush. It's inbuilt. So I just stripped out the skull and sculpted over that. Just a really handy way to kind of get in some of the bony landmarks. And like faces, I'm sure if you did any of this in like school or art college or whatever, faces have similar landmarks. For example, the side of the eyes goes to the top of the ears and all that jazz. So the ears aren't right at the moment and they're too far forwards. They're not lining up with the jaw. You'll see me with those later. But just looking for things like that can really help get your anatomy in order. Those ears, takes me a while to get those, and ears are weird, aren't they? Ears are really weird. Just make sure you're looking at it from all angles as well. This 3/4 view is really important. I end up going back to that a lot because a lot of the reference I have is of human faces from that, and you can see kind of where the eyelid is. That shape doesn't get right for a bit, and the only way I kind of nail that is just looking at the forms in 3/4 view, like pictures of models and stuff from online. Often they're that kind of view, and that just helps. It can be really easy to find pictures from the front and the side, but that 3/4 view is a super useful one. So I'm using the clay build-up, using it quite softly, and the dam standard you can kind of see me, I picked this tip up from a guy I used to work with, Jason Brown, and he used to just kind of use it to bulk in the muscle and then kind of smooth out on top of it. So you can sort of see me doing it there on the neck. That chin is way too far forward. It looks like that guy from, was it Lazy Town? What was that kid's show? That became a meme. Yeah. I have an idea I want to maybe rig this up, and the facial capture thing I was working with before, I kind of wanted to maybe try animating it with some facial performance, but we'll see if that happens. That was the point of this. Or I was thinking of maybe like twisting the textures a bit, so I made some really basic textures and substance, but I was thinking maybe taking it into Mari and like, I don't know, adding some tattoos or something to it, like post-Renaissance Malone or something, I don't know, we'll see what happens. Just getting some eyeballs in there. Now I'm finally realising that I need to open up those eyes, because what human being has their eyes shut all the time? I don't know why I started like that. And then as soon as I open them up, it looks like a bug for way too long. Eyes are really difficult. It's that top line that always gets me. The top eyelid is a nightmare. I always either underplay it, overplay it, or just don't put it in. And the brows as well, they're too far down for way too long, so it just looks really angry or really sad for ages. Yeah, it's not great. If anybody is in England, though, they have got all of New Girl on Netflix. I would recommend that for quarantine. Sorry, I know I'm chatting shit, but I've got 18 minutes to talk, and I don't really have much more to say than use clay build-up and look at reference. So my thoughts on New Girl are as follows. It's pretty good. So dish now. Yeah, I'll take it. I'm on like season 5 in like 5 days. Just had it on whilst I'm doing this sort of stuff. That nose finally taking a bit of shape. You can see me using the clay build-up really softly now finally to kind of put in the muscle. I should have done that, I think, from a fair bit earlier on. Then I end up smoothing it. And because I'm using Dynamesh, then a lot of this detail anyway ends up getting lost. Like if I re-Dynamesh it, the sharpness around the mouth, for example, I lose that quite quickly. So I'm not worried too much about the fine detail. And because it's a Greek statue, which is very, very smooth to begin with, there really isn't that much that I put in apart from the eyebrows and a bit of sharpness around the mouth and then some chipping around the neck of the bust. But other than that, it really is just about the volumes rather than the detail on this guy. And Greek statues, very childlike, very soft, like a lot of fat to them around the cheeks. Initially, I went in with quite a chiseled kind of masculine look, and then they end up looking quite prepubescent and adolescent and not really that masculine, somewhat androgynous. Finally moved the ears back because they weren't in the right place. It only took me half of this video to get there. But that's the problem with this kind of stuff, is you're staring at it too quickly, or I was staring at it for too long, and I miss some of the really obvious things. So get feedback or take a step away from it. Looking very worried there because those brows just aren't right. Finally moving them up a bit. And so you can see I've got that skull underneath in transparency mode, just so I can get the bony landmarks in. Bit more satisfied with that eyelid, but it's still looking a bit concerned and worried. So the shape of that just needs to change in general. Using the move tool, using masking stuff off and then moving bits around, or masking so that I don't add any clay there or any sculpting detail there, make sure that I keep the shape of the eyelids as I'm going, just by masking them off. And at this point, I'm getting fairly happy with the overall shape, and I knew that I was going to take it to a statue. So here I kind of duplicate it off when I've got the last little tweaks done, and then that's when I start smoothing everything out, and I've got the Greek ref up on my other screen, and then I start going to town on that. I think any minute now. Here we go, yeah. So the funny thing about Greek statues as well is like how large their eyes are and how smooth everything is, and they have very stylized hair, obviously, all that jazz. So you'll see me do hair in a little bit. That took way too long. And I found it quite difficult as well, actually, the hair. I did struggle a little bit with that. Oh, I've got a cat. Don't know if my microphone will pick it up, but I've got a needy cat jumping up on me. My housemate brought her cat to the house. And I've never lived with a cat before, and I don't really know what to do with them, I'll be honest. But Learning lots of new things in quarantine. This one, usually cats hate me, this one doesn't, so that's a nice change. But she loves distracting me when I'm either playing video games or sculpting. Anyway, moving on. This really is a very informal video. I should have prefaced that up front. There's not really much to say. You can watch the footage if you want to learn some things. You can learn some things. If not, then not. Also, the YouTube channel hit 2,000 subscribers a little while ago. I didn't really say anything about that in one of the videos, so that's kind of cool. I've got some plans that I want to do with this channel in the longer run. I've got some formats. I don't want to say podcast because who... We don't need another white guy doing a podcast in the world. But I kind of wanted to sit down and talk with some VFX artists and friends of mine who maybe still work in VFX, who used to work in VFX directly in studios and now maybe are using their skills in different ways or aren't in VFX anymore, and kind of sit down with them and talk to them about that. So that's a format I've had an idea about for a while, but I just want to make sure that if I do it, there's use in it and there's a point to doing it. So here I'm just adding a bit of flatness to the eyes just so that I can see the kind of eyeballs. I ended up removing that for the final render because you don't really see that in real statues from that kind of era. And I'm just adding a little bit of structure to the neck. I've got reference of muscles of the neck up on one screen. And while I smooth a lot of it out because those statues really don't have that much muscle definition around there, it just kind of helped get the form in at least. And now the hair. So I'm using clay build-up, quite strong Z on it, quite a strong Z strength on it or whatever it's called, and just really blocking in that. There's a lot of it to do and it took me a while, but when I kind of had a structure down, then I just had New Go up on one screen and I was just going to town on it, it was kind of fun. But then adding the kind of detail, so I was using symmetry on one side and then the side bits, because you're not going to see those as easily, it's not going to be as obvious that it's mirrored, but then the bits down the middle of it I kind of had to do all uniquely, and especially around the front I was focusing a lot more on that front fringe, making sure that it matched the reference a lot better than the back, which wasn't really going to be seen. So one thing I noticed about Greek statues is the faces are very, very flat. The eyes are very big and they look quite childish, and there's a lot of fat underneath like the chin and stuff. So when I was working on it, I've got my housemate, I was like, hey, what's wrong with this? She was like, there's too much depth to your face. And when I kind of flattened that off, it really did help sell it a bit. Also very Lana Del Rey lips, like a lot of volume to them, which again kind of helps with the, like it makes it look weirdly like childlike. I don't know, just strange faces in general. So I'm just going in, smoothing out some of the detail from this hair. I've upped the resolution of the Dynamesh and I just smoothed it all out. And now I'm using the Dam Standard to add in the kind of individual flakes of the hair. And then I got over that with the standard brush just to get a little bit more depth to it because it looks very flat here. And that was my general process. It took a long time just doing it all. But yeah, just using the Dam Standard to define it, maybe polishing a few bits, and then using a standard brush to pop some of, just add different levels of depth to these strands. And you should sort of see me doing that as we blitz through this, through the final stretch. And I did this all before remeshing it. So I just used the ZBrush tool in ZBrush for this because it's not going to be for production things. I was just like, I'll just get some topology so I can bake mesh maps out and then paint on it. And could have waited till afterwards, but the reason I did this is because I want the topology to kind of follow the strands of the hair, just so that it's in the model without it relying on the displacement map to get that nicely. Yeah, it was a fun experiment. I don't think I nailed the look of the hair compared to reference. If I was at work, then I'd spend a lot more time on this, but because there was so much of it, I did get quite bored, and I kind of got something that worked and looked okay, and then just ran that over the bulk of the head. And then just making final tweaks, just adding the final kind of polish to the lips and getting the smoothness and the bits that I wanted to be sharp in there so that when I do bake out the displacement, it comes out nicely. I noticed on the hair it does look a bit soft because I just didn't get crisp edges as good as the Dam Standard brushes. It pinches a little bit, and I should have gone in and done second pass just to get tighter, crispier bits. And then here finally I'm just using the Z remeasure guide brush, which kind of pops down lines so that the remeshing of it follows the topology that you kind of generally set out. One slight problem I found with this is that when I had symmetry on, it would mean while the topology was symmetrical, the hair would also become symmetrical. and it would ruin it. So I ended up having to do it without symmetry on. It was the whole thing. I didn't enjoy it. Anyway, underneath, just adding some detail, which you're not really going to see in this final render. You don't really see it at all, but I just wanted to make sure that it was there. And I'm using the flakes brush, I'm using the clay buildup, and I'm using the high polish and trim adaptive and dynamic to just block in. I've done way too many sculpts of rocks in my time as a VFX artist, so this is a process that I'm quite familiar with, and I probably should have used some alphas as well just to get something a bit nicer, because I knew it was going to be kind of far out. Just this hand sculpted detail I knew would kind of hold up with a bit of texture in there as well. And I think it kind of does. And then, yeah, finally just masking out the areas of the face, the hair, and the neck. And then I use the UV unwrap tool inside of ZBrush to get UV islands for those 3 sections so that I have just it split up a bit nicer in the UVs. Yeah, cool. That's the final thing. So really, this wasn't a huge purpose to this. Maybe it was enjoyable, maybe it was useful, maybe it was none of the above. My name's been Michael Wilde. You can check out my channel for proper tutorials and texturing videos and modelling videos and sculpting videos, all that jazz. And there'll be more to come in the future. Take it easy. Best of luck, whatever you're doing in lockdown. Hoping you're keeping sane somehow. I've been Michael Wilde. Check out my site for more. Check out my channel for more. Cheers. Bye.